Welcome to Socializing Security, where every week we have a discussion about security, compliance, and beyond.
Our goal is to learn and grow by socializing each week's topic with each other, our guests, and with you.
A quick compliance note, this podcast is meant for informational purposes only and should not be considered legal or regulatory advice.
We're glad you've joined us, and we hope you'll learn along with us. And we're back for another fun episode. Milou, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I think you and I are both running a mile a minute at the moment, so glad to be slowing down and having this conversation today.
Yeah, it's crazy, but you know we're here to record these episodes on a regular basis now, and you know we're being consistent and you know creating a flow for these things. So I'm feeling really good about it and happy to take a little bit of time away from the crazy to have conversations like this with you. So. Yep. Always fun.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we on our last episode, we talked a lot about AI, specifically around generative AI, and you know a lot of the recent news here at the end of 2023, beginning of 2024. For those that may be listening years away from now, and you know some of the scary parts of it, and some of the trustworthy concerns that come up out of it, and whatnot. You know, if you're interested in our take on those things, that episode should already be available if you wanted to go back and listen to that. And so after the recording, Milou and I were talking, we're like, you know, hey, there's all sorts of parts that we could dive into further deeper. There's adjacent pieces that we could talk about. And one of the ideas that was already on our list was to talk about how this kind of gets used in a way that we really need to be careful about how we suss out facts and reality from fakes and people trying to scam us and whatnot. So we kind of want to dig into kind of more of the, not so much specific to AI, but it's a big heavy part of the conversation around scams and phishing and things like that. And quite frankly, this is a topic, Milou, I know both you and I can talk about on a moment's notice and probably for way longer than half an hour.
I'll try to keep it brief. Oh man, I could talk about social engineering attacks and phishing and all the things that I've been able to see in my line of business. Honestly, for a while, and I think for multiple episodes, which is why we're here. But I do think the concept of, we talked about AI and generative AI being exciting and innovative on our last episode, but also a little scary. And we had these concerns around, like, I was like, oh no, I don't want to be fear-mongering, which is true because I'm a really big advocate for generative AI and the responsible usage of these, you know, different artificial intelligence technologies that we're all, you know, very much up and about right now. I think we're all a little bit sick of hearing about AI, as you said, in spring of 2024. I think it's been just like, we've just had so much news about it. The thing that I've had conversations around with a lot of people, you know, even like personal, like friends and family, is also just like about the fear associated with it and why this thing could become so scary. And for me, as a compliance practitioner, my concern specifically in the information security space is a lot around how are we going to train people to understand that the tooling is going to be smarter than we are at a certain point. So you know, we're so used to doing information security trainings, and I honestly think most of our employee bases, they're better about handling their personal security at work than they are at home. But every single time every year, at least a couple times a year, I get pulled into client calls where they're like, hey, you know, we had an employee who just started and their information was pulled pretty much immediately off of maybe like a social media platform like LinkedIn. So basically, like, they posted like, hey, I work for this company now and I'm so excited. And then 2 days later, they're getting very convincing messages from CEOs asking for gift cards or joining meetings or calendar invite ones. Those have been really, really quick and easy. And so my fear when I'm talking about AI technology is sometimes about how am I going to train people, especially new people to companies who are less, maybe they're not involved as information security like experts, or that, you know, they're new to a company and they're just trying their best, right? Like nobody like wants to send a gift card to the wrong person. That's like so not the intention. You're all like, you started a new job and you're excited. and then you accidentally send $500 to somebody, and then it's a rude awakening when the company is like, hey, that wasn't us.
Yeah.
And I think that's only going to get worse as the technology continues to outsmart us.
Yeah. I mean, humans were already pretty good on their own at, and this all comes down to social engineering is the base of all this, of any scam, of any phishing scheme. It all starts with somebody understanding how humans operate better than humans do, and saying, I know how to manipulate them without them really knowing it, or at least fool them long enough that they'll do the thing. Whether that's, calling up an elderly person and pretending to be their son and relying on them not being able to hear well and saying, oh yeah, I'm your son and this is my name and I live in this place and, can you send me this money in this way? And, that's a tale as old as time. Nigerian prince schemes go back as long as we've had email and mass. It's all social engineering.
I feel that's the brand of Nigeria that they're like associated with this thing.
Yeah.
That is now kind of like just like a running joke in the cybersecurity community. But absolutely, you're right. It's the idea of social engineering and falling for scams and being conned, that's something we've always had. That's not new.
Yeah.
What's new is that it's going to be significantly more difficult for us to train people on how to discern, is this real or fake? And so I think that's the concern in our community where it's like, hey, like this isn't like a new thing, right? Like we've been falling for mail scams forever. And those still happen. I still get those like every couple months, to the point that I've like unsubscribed and opted out from every single type of mail. Maybe like on the other like too restrictive side, but like when we moved, we fell for one, and that's so common. Like we live in a state that has a particular tax exemption, and there's like really common scams that like they mail disclosures, and we've fallen for them. So it's not even like I'm susceptible to this stuff. Just even though like I'm a compliance practitioner and cybersecurity lawyer, and I hope that I'm doing better than most, but like I'm totally going to be a victim for these things. So I'm always coming from a place of how do I make sure I'm not the one who falls for the thing? Because for my brand, that's not great. Like that's not great.
Yeah. And I mean, the old scams still work to this day. I mean, I remember as a kid, chain letters, and you'd literally get a piece of mail coming from the postal service, and it would be like, hey, if this is so-and-so, a cousin, an aunt, an uncle, a friend, whoever it might be, they sent you a letter, and you would call and you'd be like, oh yeah, they would tell you it's legit. I did this thing. It's like, okay, so you sent this to 24 people that you know. Cool. So this thing must be real if you believe it, because I trust you. And so you fill out 24 letters and forward that chain to somebody else. And it's, hey, send a book, I think was the one that I remember that drew me in the most. Go send a book to this person. Send one of your favorite books, and to whoever sent you this letter, and then go and send this to 24 other people, and you'll get 24 books in, and you just have to send one. And as a kid, you don't think about that. Most adults don't think about that. And now today, it's got a new life. I remember this last holiday season, there was a holiday bourbon group. Like, hey,
honestly,
let's
Brian
do a
is
club.
being really nice, so I will add some color here because I actually fell for a chain. What is it called? Basically, a chain scam, a chain letter scam.
Yeah, it's.
I sent Brian chainmail through my poor husband, so I will take full blame for this. My husband did nothing wrong. I was trying the intention behind it. And I can say why, like I'll let you finish the story, but the why is really important to understanding why these things happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's tugging on heartstrings. It's tugging on community. It's tugging on us wanting to be a part of something bigger, better than ourselves. And therefore it continues to work. It's an evergreen scam that works for the people at the top of the pyramid that eventually get to the point where the people at the bottom of the pyramid are the ones that are going to end up getting screwed. And, in the scenario I talked about before as a kid, my cousin may have gotten 24 books. I may get 12. The 12 people that I got them from may get 6, so on and so forth. And so it eventually dies out because, I mean, the forest only has so many trees that can be burnt down. At some point, you're barren at that point. No one else is available. But it works because, hey, I want to be a part of this, and for that particular bourbon one, I thought about it considerably and was pretty close to doing something about it. And then I realized the math doesn't work. It just doesn't fit. And once I hit that realization, I'm like, oh, okay, now I need to push back the other direction. And it was honestly debating how hard I was going to push back on it because I didn't want to shame people. That's not my way.
Well, right, and that's
when you
where,
sent
like,
it to me, yeah, I had to call it out at
you
that
were
point.
like, excuse me, ma'am. No.
Yeah.
And luckily you and I have the relationship that you were like, what are you doing? This is not. And then it was like, right. I am never saying that I'm perfect. I will always say that I'm like open to getting feedback and learning from mistakes. And the thing is the intention with something like that of somebody who's trying to foster connections and establish relationships with somebody, and also who happens to be like really into bourbon, like, and create community around that. Those things are super positive. And like, what's sad about it, right, is afterwards I had been like, hey, why don't we like set up our own legitimate exchange where like it's a small community of like people that we know. I think they would all actually be like, oh my God, yes, like I'll happily send a bottle to somebody, and truly more of like a white elephant idea. But at that point, there's so much like embarrassment and shame associated with it that like it didn't happen because the motivation behind it was like, I did something bad. And I'm speaking for myself, but it was also like, like the intention of being like embarrassed. And then the motivation drive is gone because then you feel silly and stupid. And so that's what's really important when we're thinking about how you train and educate this within companies, but also within people themselves in their personal security. Because I'm always like I really want to be mindful. We all need to do better in our personal security, not just our corporate security, because honestly, companies are doing like pretty well and like they are huge attack vectors. So they need to be managing their stuff better because ultimately their bottom line could be significantly impacted and their shareholders might really see some decrease in value if they get impacted by a large data breach, right? But from a personal security perspective, doing something like falling victim to like a Ponzi scheme or what we're saying, like a chainmail letter, or any other social engineering attack can be really embarrassing because it's like, oh shoot, my bad. I should have known better. I knew better. I'm somebody I absolutely should have known better. And I'll say that and being like, oh, then you're embarrassed that you fell for something. But the intention behind that is like part of the human experience here that makes it so easy to fall victim to these things because we're moving super quickly. We're too busy. We also have alert fatigue across all these things. So we're like, oh, exciting thing. Let me get this off my plate and fix this and do this and act quickly so that I can like keep moving forward with my day and get all my things done because we're all just super busy at the moment.
Yep.
But then we don't even have the time to like slow down and be like, wait, does this make sense?
Yeah. And people that worked with us in the past will probably echo a lot of what I'm about to say, which is, part of what you were able to do at that company was to instill in me the thought process of, okay, is this thing asking for me to do something quick, completely out of the ordinary, and trying to make it sound like you're doing a benefit for somebody else? And the bigger the benefit, the more questionable it should be. And it sucks that we have to look at anything that people are doing for the good of others or to be nice to somebody or to do some advantage for a third person. But, those three things combined, if I see those three things combined, I start to really question. And that was part of, the bourbon exchange thing that came to me is like, okay, I want to be a part of this and people are asking me to do this quickly and they're asking me to do something that's very beneficial to the community as a whole. Okay, that's enough warning bells. Let me think about this. And that was always the key that I learned through the training that we did. Just take a pause. Like nothing that is like nobody's getting into an accident and their life is on the line. And the difference between me sending a $500 gift card and somebody dying in the hospital doesn't compute. They don't go together. Therefore, take some time and think about it. And so many things since then I've been like, okay, I sit and I think about it. I'm like, oh yeah, I should probably not do that.
I mean, this is like a good lesson, like for just general, like corporate well-being and personal. Like I also am just somebody, I move too quickly. So I'm always like, slow down, like take a minute, take a beat. But for this, specifically with social engineering, and like I appreciate the compliment, but for me, it's really like it's a personal thing that's kind of become like a soft drop and roll where it's really like slow down, verify and report it. And I always am saying those things with the clients that I work with is like, slow down, verify and report it. You are not going to get in trouble for making an extra phone call to double check that somebody sent you something, especially if they're asking you to do something really immediately. Like, also, if you do get in trouble for that, then like that's an HR issue. We need to like consider that and like figure out culturally what's going on within the company. Like, and we also expect people to be online and like attentive and like on their best game constantly, which means it's easier for us to fall victim to these because we're just like kind of burnt out. Like like as a corporate workforce, I feel like everybody is kind of just like burnt out a little bit. And so we're all not responding. I don't know if you have this, I'll have this sometimes that I'll like send a really quick message because I'm like, oh, get it off my plate. And then I'm like, shoot, I think later I might have said that differently. Yeah. And the same thing with like a bourbon exchange or like sending something is like the intention was really positive and like, and I'm trying to focus on that of like, what was the intention of the thing? Obviously, like, then retracting it and being like, oh, shoot, our bad, we didn't mean to do that. Like, no big deal. And I don't think nobody like fell for it. So it was fine. It's low stakes. But it's more than like what do you do with it next? Which is why I was trying to be like, could you like build community? Could you foster the intention behind the thing? That being said, with the social engineering piece specifically, where we're saying like slow down, verify, and report it. Those really like that's always my main bread and butter advice for companies if they're building a social engineering strategy is like just start with that and you'll get really far. But make sure that people feel comfortable reporting anything to your IT team, right? Like whatever it is, even if it's something they're like embarrassed to report, like that's totally fine. If it's something impacting their personal stuff, totally fine, whatever. Just like let them report it, feel welcome, because that starts to build that culture that we're talking about, right? Of being like, wait, I don't think this is right.
Yeah, I was going to say when you talked earlier about no one's going to be concerned if you verify 2 or 3 extra times just to make sure. That may not be true for everybody. There are definitely those high-end executives who are like, follow my commands and go. Like, why would you dare question it? So there needs to be an element of culture coming from that level that says, yes, I encourage you to verify. I would rather you require me to type out a yes, that was really me message 3 times before you send somebody a $500 gift card. So there definitely needs to be a culture for that. There definitely needs to be that culture for everybody is responsible for reporting it. And not making the assumption of, oh, someone else will report this. I don't need to take the time to report this, because if everybody says that, nobody reports it. And then to me, the third element of that really needs to be the reaction that those in compliance and security have to those people that report it or that report that they fell for it. I sent this to a friend today who shared a screenshot and says, wow, do I get a prize? And the screenshot was, congratulations, this was part of a phishing test, essentially. It worded it much better ways than that. But I'm like, yeah, your prize is that you don't feel like you're getting punished by having to do compliance training again. And that's another thing that you helped instill in me, is the fact that like you cannot make it feel like a punishment, but you still got to get those people trained. So how do you deal with that? How do you make it so that this person clearly needs to have the training again, and it's good for everybody that they do it, but not make it feel like, oh, you failed. Guess what? You get to sit through another 20-minute compliance training.
Yeah, my approach has always been to reward the positive behavior instead of using training as like, oh, you did this wrong, do that. Because like nobody likes doing information security training. Like, come on, it's long, it's tedious, and like, there are definitely great providers, but we've all done the same training. Like they change a little bit year over year. I hope to never use the same curriculum twice, but it's pretty much the same stuff over and over again. And the thing is we've all heard it before. So it's inherently something that like you're going to tune out because it's not new information. So my personal philosophy is always to figure out like what are fun things, like different conferences or different events or webinars for people to start actually, acting with this information differently, or like coming in with, man, I'll do ridiculous things for the companies that I work with. Like I personally have like a walkout song, right, that I bring out that if compliance is going to talk to the whole company, then I try to make it fun. I also try to like send rewards to people if they do report things. Like I would way rather somebody like report something wrong and then I'm like, hey, like here's a coffee gift, like whatever. Like some companies obviously can't send gift cards, but like you can send like a little treat or like get a like lunch credit, like whatever it is, right? Like some companies have really nice like swag. People really want that. So coming up with different things that matter to your employee organization, I think is hugely powerful.
Sorry, I was laughing at the use of gift cards while we keep attacking people sending gift cards and the conversations that go on behind.
This is actually my favorite brand because it feels like a test. So I love actually if people fell for the gift card thing that they then get a gift card because it like feels like a
Here's what
the
you
amount
thought
of
you were going to get.
messages. Yeah, I actively feel like people are like, is this a test? Are you phishing me? And I'm like, hey, no, but I will call you and you will hear it from me directly, or I'll mention it in a message, or I'll send them an email and then also follow up with them like through their messaging channel so that they're getting two different places. So they're like, oh no, Milou's actually not trying to trap me. But so many people are still like, is this a test?
Wait, what? Multi-factor authentication? Holy cow. Who'd have thought? But no, I want to key off of that because that's the part that scares me with, kind of looping back to AI. That's the part that scares me more than anything is, and we talked about this on the last episode, is people getting on calls with who they think are their executives, but are really just deepfakes. And holy cow, the concept of, and of course we've heard of using AI to mimic my voice and then calling my grandmother and saying, hey, can you go transfer all this money because I need bail or something like that. While AI is doing the heavy lifting to make it convincing, there's still an undercurrent of social engineering. Like, do you know me well enough to convince my grandma? My grandma's pretty cogent still. And, she's going to be like, Brian's in jail and needs a bailout? That doesn't make sense. Let me call his dad instead. Those types of things play into it. But man, I'm deathly afraid of I'm at a new company. I don't know everybody. And while I do my best to verify, I get on calls and there's people on there and I don't necessarily know who all of them are, and they're on video and they sound like the people that I've talked to before. But, am I really looking out for those, do they have 6 fingers? Do they have an extra ear? Is their ear partially missing? Like those things that we look for AI generated images. Do those even exist in video anymore? Like, I don't understand the AI video well enough, and it's already been weaponized against us. I'm like, what are we going to do?
Well, your concerns are, I think, the area where it's like, yes, this is why I'm like, it's exciting and also scary because, and I'll just walk through the listeners through the like scenario just to make sure we're all like tracking here, where we're basically saying that in the social engineering space with generative AI technologies and things that we're calling deep fakes, and deep fakes have been around for a while. This isn't like necessarily new technology in 2024 where we're talking today, but it's the intention behind, if your customer success team, right, or like, your customer representatives answer a phone call from a customer, it sounds like the customer, they verify through the standard channels, or like they can, who knows, maybe they've already like hacked the system, whatever, but they're also starting to like do things like voice that can get manipulated so easily now. And And without even people necessarily realizing it, we're recording a podcast. You and I have both basically agreed here right now that our voice is now like a powerful tool to help us spread a message and create content and do this thing at Socializing Security that we're passionate about. But we've both just taken a risk by creating more public platforms for ourselves with our voice, with our videos, because we're also recording videos. And so now there's additional content for somebody to basically weaponize that and use that against us for the companies that we work with, for our friends and
our
family.
families. Yeah.
So it's a very real threat. And that's the part of it that I think is really scary, because the thing that we've said about being like, oh yeah, if somebody asks you for a gift card, right, you're not going to fall for it. But if somebody who looks and sounds like me says, you need to join this video, and I send you a message and I send you a link, you're really likely to click it.
Yep.
Or if you are like, hey, I think this is fishy, and you call and I've been hacked, then it's quite easy for somebody to replicate that information and basically look and sound like me.
Yep. And throw SIM swapping in there and they can call from your phone number to me. I mean, it's such a challenge these days. And it's making the speed of things even worse, because that time to pause and think about things is so much deeper that we have to think through it. Do we have maybe we need to start being more aware of people's social tics and the things that they do and the way that they stand and the way that they move and like using those. But even those, AI can spot those way easier than humans can. So I don't know.
So
I
what
just
are
don't know
our
what to do about
tells?
it.
Maybe we should share the listeners so that they know what it is. I have this particular blue bonnet. Now that I'm going to call it out, now this could be weaponized, right? But it's like, what are the things? Is my background the same every time? It's not, because I have plants, and so I move them around. It's constantly changing, and maybe there's a specific plant that you and I should come up with that you can ask me about, and that's basically like a tell, right? That if we had a code word, yeah, it's like we're spies. This is exactly those reasons why I think cybersecurity is like scary and concerning. It's because people think we're spies.
Well, and quite honestly, the whole world's being dragged into this particular space of you have to verify everything. You have to be cautious with everyone you talk to. You can't trust anybody. I mean, we're all living in the X-Files at this point.
Right. And again, it's that. And this is exactly why I think we're here today to talk about this. You and I, we can't solve the issues that we're talking about. We're only going to learn with the industry. And for example, like I specifically keep looking at the thought leadership coming out of the companies that create information security trainings. And that's what I would recommend a lot of people use as a good resource to being like, well, how are they recommending that they're training their employee base? Because this is marketing material for them. It's already like out there. It's free for us to go like digest because they're selling a product for phishing simulations and like attacks and stuff. And so that would be an area that I would continue to look for of what are they recommending people do. And again, it's still going to be slow down, verify, and report it. I'll say that forever. That won't change. How we verify it will, though. So it will turn, I'm curious to see how the culture shapes, because I'm like, will this mean that like companies, do we always have to be camera on? Like, because how will we know? You know, there's certain things that like, how would you know if the voice recording is getting that good that it sounds like people, or people might not even be like showing up. It's like there's AI tools, right, that might just be answering phone calls for us or like handling messaging. I've called a couple of them and it's wild. You could so tell, but I think they're going to keep getting better.
Well, I mean, the latest one was Air Canada. As we record this, is they, as a company, got forced to abide by some crazy terms that their AI bot agreed to that was just supposed to be there to fill in when their human customer service people were overwhelmed. And, you know, it became something that they were held liable for. And honestly, I'm really glad they were being held liable for it, because it was something somebody worked on. They had no reason to believe that it wasn't a valid agreement that they were getting into. And you know, we've heard the same story about bots on the website of used car companies selling cars for $1 and things like that. So I hope that these companies are held to those things and they reconsider their use of AI and, you know, use it in a way that is more trustworthy and that will drive the industry to put better protections around it, so that customers will want to use those types of tools.
Yeah, and again, I'm not sure how we'll see the regulations change in this space. From my like personal opinion and like my professional opinion here, but is that I do think because it's consumers, this will impact all of us more in our day-to-day lives, not necessarily in our corporate lives. I think we'll see regulation come out sooner than we maybe have in other technology spaces, because this could impact all of us in our every single day life. You know, we've seen Taylor Swift in the news, right, with deep fakes. And so you actually see people with very large platforms speaking out about this, because obviously like what's happening in certain areas with the type of material that was posted about her. And I will say, if there's particular references, Brian, I do want to try to like add stuff to our show notes to making sure that our listeners can follow along with us with some of these things that we're talking about, so it's easy for them to research. But I would say we're seeing so much traction in the space of social engineering, deep fakes, generative AI, and the concerns about responsible usage that I do believe the moment is here that we'll see regulation very soon. And again, this is spring 2024. My best estimate is in the next 6 months, things are going to look really different because we have to keep up because we're behind.
Oh, yeah. And
behind.
It's playing heavily in politics directly as well. So that's where the push needs to be. And, you know, just the circumstances are pushing that direction for us. Like, we don't have to push the politicians are being pushed themselves. So
So
Very
maybe
interesting
that's
times.
a prediction episode for, we're in February, we're Q1, so sometime in Q3 2024, we need to do Milou's prediction updates on regulation coming out in the AI space, specifically regarding like responsible AI usage and additional technology regulation
Yeah.
for deepfakes. I think I'm curious if we'll see anything in the 6 months. If not from the government, I think we will from information security standards and bodies such as like NIST. Definitively, I think they're already required to come out with that in like the next couple of months.
Yep.
So
yeah, those wheels are already moving down the hill. So cool. Yeah, definitely a lot more that we'll dig into as we go forward into this. Listeners, feel free to hold Milou responsible for her predictions. We want to have fun with that kind of stuff is really what it comes down to.
please do hold me accountable for my predictions, because this might be fun. But maybe I do need to just then maybe we'll make it sweeter, and then we'll send bourbon. Not
Bourbon and
illegal
gift
way.
cards.
Or not alcohol. Maybe it needs to be, maybe I'll send gift cards. I don't know. Oh, man. Our lawyer is not going to be happy with us when we're talking about stuff like this, but I'll keep her in good company. But I'll say maybe we can come up with a fun reward system with so that way I don't accidentally send people bourbon exchanges and fall for stuff. Honestly, it was worth it for the story.
I'm always a fan of if you make a mistake, if you have some sort of embarrassing thing, if you can turn it into a fun story that you can use to either entertain people or to help them understand a complex topic, then it was a bad incident made good. And to me, that's, if you dwell on the bad things, life isn't very much fun. So we want to talk about those things, show you that we're just as fallible as anybody else. Nobody here is immune to these types of things. So we'll be open to share our experiences, even if it's embarrassing.
Can we get branded bourbon? I don't know, maybe that's a question for legal, but can we do that?
Let's take that conversation offline, because I definitely want to have that one.
I'm like, I don't know, maybe that's a really fun swag option for us.
I know people that might be able to help.
Oh, great. Okay, cool. Well, all right, we'll continue that conversation offline. Maybe you'll see this in our merchandise sometime soon. In the meantime, I will say I think that's going to wrap up our episode today, but thank you all so much for listening and joining with us. In the meantime, you can still reach out to us via LinkedIn at Socializing Security, as well as via email at info@socializing. And we have more to come soon, and we're excited to talk to you again very soon.
Yep. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Socializing Security. We hope you learned a thing or two with us.
If you'd like to continue socializing with us on this topic or have feedback, we'd love to hear from you on LinkedIn or social media. Just search for Socializing Security. Or you can email us at info@socializingsecurity.com.
Until next time, stay social and stay secure.